Welcome back to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Anna Cabeca, your girlfriend doctor. Today, we're diving into one of the most overlooked yet urgent health conversations of our time. And this is how our environment, especially EMFs, could be affecting your hormones, your energy, your sleep, even your fertility. My guest is Dr. Stephanie McCarter, and she is a brilliant and pioneering physician in environmental and internal medicine. From mold and mycotoxins to electromagnetic sensitivity and microwave radiation exposure, she's been on the front lines helping patients uncover the hidden triggers behind chronic disease. So get ready to learn practical and powerful ways to protect yourself and your family in our modern, very, very tech heavy world. All right, let's get started. I want to welcome Dr. Stephanie McCarter, and good to see you here, Stephanie. Thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thanks for having me and doing this segment. This is so important.
This is so important. And I want to share with our audience that Stephanie just joined our practice at Carpathia Health in Dallas, Texas. So I get to sponge off her immense knowledge base so intensely. So I'm super
And
excited.
you likewise.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to make a great team. Well, I want to
Mhm.
start it with you sharing your background because
Yes,
this is a niche. This is, and I'm not going to say on the fringe, but for many people, this is on the fringe. Like it's not even in their awareness yet. And your
right, right.
background's extraordinary. So, what inspired you to transition from traditional internal medicine to environmental medicine personally?
Right. So I was fresh out of my residency in internal medicine, and I noticed as I got out of my practice initially that younger and younger people were all being medicated. And when you're in the hospital doing medications, you don't think about that, right? So you're out in your practice and like, I don't find any normal people and younger people. And then ironically, we moved into this house that was like our dream home, and I started getting sick. And everything that I had learned in medical school, every diagnosis, every test, was not showing anything. And I was extremely reactive to sound. Initially, it was just trouble sleeping, headaches. Then I started having breathing issues. Anyway, long story short, we had black mold in our house, and some people are more susceptible to that, which I did not learn in medical school. This is like 25 years ago. And so I was going to all these top doctors, and they said, well, you're basically sensitive to everything. Like I had the little patch test, and they said you're sensitive to the phenol that we use in the antigens to test you. So we really can't tell because your whole back is lighting up. Here's some steroids. Here's some EpiPens. And I was just completely beside myself because I knew there was something else going on. And finally, I told my husband, I said, I think it's in this house because it was in Indiana. It was in summer, and whatever was in the house was outside. Well, it got moldy outside, and my lungs were tight. So ironically, I finally talked to someone at my church, and they said you should go see this doctor in Dallas. So I looked up Dr. William Ray, who ends up being this renowned, world-renowned environmental doctor, which I knew nothing about. And of course, he's on this list of doctors that's quackery, whatever. So I kept thinking, well, I have nothing to lose at this point because nobody's helping me. And so I called him, and in the phone call, he asked me, do you think you have mold in your house? No one asked me that question. Do you have certain sensitivities to this type of products? He's like, your nervous system's being poisoned. You need to get down here and get treatment. So I walk into his unit, which was interesting place. It was airlocked, and it had like super filtrated air. Like you walked in and you're just like, I want to sleep here because it felt so good. There was nothing your body could react to. And so I was like, this is amazing. He called it an environmental controlled unit. And he evidently, I was having a lot of weird brain symptoms. And he said, you're probably sensitive to electromagnetic fields. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, it's wireless and magnetic fields of, electricity. And it happens when you have severe nervous system dysfunction from mold or heavy metals or chemicals. And I was just like, wow, because I knew I was having these weird symptoms and I was like, why am I'm not crazy. I know I'm not crazy. Right. And so it turns out Dr. Ray started studying this on radar workers in the 90s.
Wow.
And he had an EMF room where it was completely Faraday caged, and he would do testing, be like 0 hertz, 5 hertz, basic hertz that we're exposed to. But he did a multi-phase double-blind study, probably the only one on these workers. So you would go in and then he'd check vitals, and you'd do like digit analysis, and then they would expose people, and it was consistent. So he was way ahead of his time. And so what I've seen over the years is we are now exposed to a quintillion times more radiation than our grandparents. It's really rapidly increased in the last 10 years. And we've seen a lot of things that people aren't realizing are related to this. It's like the elephant in the room. And Dr. Ray told me, he said, this is your tobacco, like your generation's tobacco. He said, he predicted everything that's happening. He said, they're going to keep adding more, and then people are starting to get problems. Then there are going to be cancers. Then children will get cancers in about 20, 25 years. And that's what's happening. I mean, we've had two big studies that have come out in the last 2 years of kids 10 to 14 who have grown up with 4G and 5G, which is fourth generation, fifth generation phones. They have a 500% increase in rectal or colon cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
500%.
Yes, and it was presented by a gastroenterology conference. It's allopathic mainstream medicine. Right now, they're blaming it a lot on food and food dye, and things that have become a big awareness now, and talking about COVID, because COVID's done a lot of damage. But I can tell you, if you look at Richard Lear did a study. It's from 1990 to 2015. We've had this dramatic increase before COVID of all these neurological diseases. And interestingly, there was a doctor in the Navy, Zori Glazer. He did tons of studies on microwave radiation for biowarfare, ironically using the frequencies that we are exposed to now. And 36 of the chronic diseases that have gone up in people, especially children, are listed in his studies. They're all part of it. And so what people are not realizing, and this is what Dr. Ray told me is going to happen, is you have your safety guidelines from 1996. So 1996, we didn't have iPhones. We didn't have hotspots. We didn't have near the number of towers we have. There's no cumulative, I mean, there are tons of cumulative studies done from non-industry scientists. And actually in 2017, over 200 scientists worldwide have made appeals to the World Health Organization and the European Union to put a moratorium on 5G. And interestingly, Ben Ishay is a scientist in Israel, and he's worried because right now we are exposed to 2.5 gigahertz on our phone. That's basically 2 billion cycles per second. So your cells operate at 40 cycles per second. Your brain, your mitochondria at 100 cycles per second. So we're booming this frequencies at our bodies. And he showed that when they get into these higher frequencies, so they're planning like 28 gigahertz, 39 gigahertz. There's 6G and 7G phones planned. You're getting closer and closer to ionizing radiation. That's like X-rays, okay? But 28 and 39 gigahertz, Dr. Ishay found our sweat glands are little antennas for those frequencies. So we need to update the studies and have validation like these scientists are begging. And in 2021, the U.S. Appeals Court was ordering the FCC to, hey, these are 30-year-old guidelines. Let's update this. And that has yet to happen. But that was promoted. Basically, they presented 11,000 pages of evidence showing that, there's harm here. And children are really a concern. And I just want to tell people smart is not smart. If it's putting out wireless radiation, it is affecting the calcium channels. In babies, if you think about a baby's skull, they have a lot more fluid in their skull. So there's something called the dielectric constant. And the dielectric constant is how much fluid is. So a baby has a lot higher. So if you think about anything fluid, it heats up with radiation, right? And they're developing nervous systems. So they've already shown, some studies have shown that their ADD can actually start in the womb. Because if you have a laptop in front of your pregnant belly and you have all this amniotic fluid, it's like when you put something in the microwave and it's fluid, it heats up faster. And they're saying, oh, well, it's not the same. It is the same frequency as a microwave, 2.5 gigahertz, but they're saying it's a different power density. But it's just we need to take steps.
We need to update these studies and to look at this. And I think one of the areas is, well, first I got to, when did you first see Dr. Ray here in Dallas?
2000.
25
years ago.
So I'm like, and
Yeah.
how was your brain functioning then? Because I don't know a faster brain than yours.
Oh, it was pretty bad. Yeah. I did some neuropsych evaluation testing that's basically looking to see how much neurotoxicity I had. And Dr. Ray was brilliant. He had a really neat thing going where he had labeled something called glutathione, which is a very important antioxidant. And he used it in an IV to use a 3-camera SPECT scan to see if the body, it's like a preventative test. Is the brain uptaking the glutathione. And if patients didn't uptake, you had holes in the brain. And he worked with a radiologist, and they published papers on this to show that if it had these holes, it didn't mean it was a permanent thing, but it meant that there was significant neurotoxicity going on. And so when I ended up working with Dr. Ray, I learned how much that scan was helpful, because it always correlated to either neurotoxicity from heavy metals or molds and chemicals. And, it was something that you couldn't deny because it was physiological, right? It wasn't like the person's crazy. So, because people get a lot of weird symptoms, especially if they get sicker
And they can
from
be
this.
diagnosed with psychiatric illness.
Exactly. So anxiety and depression. I've had a lot of people with 5G now, especially the 5G towers going up near a person's apartment or bedroom. They can't sleep. They feel suddenly anxious. And then one of the ways to know if it's bothering you is go away from it. Go away for a few days. People are like, oh, I feel 100 times better. And they usually find out that, the symptoms started when that was added, or they added a hot spot in their house and they don't sleep. They're like, something's going on. I feel wired but tired, fatigue. Difficulty concentrating is a big one. Like all of a sudden I can't focus. And that's the other thing, is you really don't want any of that stuff around you when you go to sleep at night, because we need a break from it. And your brain actually, shrinks while you're sleeping, so the lymph can like clear. And so we really want to keep that sanctuary where you don't have those exposures. And people are like, I can't live without my phone. And I'm like, well, put it across the room. 4G goes at least 10 to 15 feet if you got to have it on, but I'll give you some resources, but there's clocks you can buy that are low EMF, because it's so important. And then if you got a smart TV in your bedroom, anything smart, even if it's not on, you will find that it's putting out usually some kind of frequency. So that's what I wanted to say. Like, these frequencies have been studied. There's a guy named Martin Pall. He's a brilliant biochemist out of Washington State. You can Google him on YouTube. He has shown that these calcium channels in our cells are extremely sensitive to these frequencies. So you don't want calcium inside the cell. You don't want to flood the cell with calcium. And that's what's happening. So what happens then is you get a cascade of different enzymes called nitric oxide synthase, and they produce a free radical. I call it the P effect, the peroxynitrite. That will bind to hydroxyl and then create more oxidative stress in your body. And so that's just one more thing that people's bodies are dealing with. We've got food, air, and water pollution, but now we've got this, we've got COVID. So you're just adding to the load, the total load. And Apple Watches, not good, right? Because Apple Watches are basically wearing like a mini cell tower on your body, and they register extremely high. I have a meter. This is one by Safer Living Technologies. I really like this one. It only does the radio frequencies, but it's really important because it tells you like what you're being exposed to. You can go to their website and listen to the sounds. So I'm just going to take my phone off. I have an iPhone. I usually keep it on airplane mode, but I'm going to show you how much radiation comes off these iPhones that we don't even realize. I mean, if you knew that you were hearing this all the time, I'm not even searching anything right now, just turning it on, but it's going up to 400, 600,000 microwatts. I mean, anything over 10 is affecting the calcium channels.
Wow.
So if you're having that on all day long, and this is another thing people may not realize, if you go to your phone and you go under general and then legal, and in your contract, it says, do not wear these on your body. And that's because they have to cover the liability, right? And there's been what we call phone gate, where they're realizing all these safety guideline tests were way over the exposure limits. And the other sad part is that United States is about 1,000 times higher in their safety guideline max, limit of exposure. So with 5G now, there are so much more things coming out. It is in the Make America Healthy agenda, but they did omit some very important studies. There was the Dr. Glazer studies from the Navy that basically spells it out, all these chronic illnesses, ADD, anxiety, depression, autoimmune disease, all these things that have risen. I mean, I believe it's due to this P factor, right? And then think about it, you've got people wearing AirPods, not a good idea because it's radiating through your brain. I've measured the microwatts in the AirPods. It is extremely high. And so, again, your listeners need to know nobody's evaluated the safety of this. We're at 1996. So we need to get on the
We're an experiment in progress.
We are an experiment. And the young people especially, right? Because they've grown up with it. Baby monitors, horrible. So EMF analysis is a website, and then lessemf.com. They can help with baby monitors. Baby monitors put a tremendous amount of Wi-Fi. They also have a magnetic field. So babies, again, much more absorbent of this stuff. Um, People say, well, what am I going to do with my kids and iPads? Well, there's a lot of things you can do where you can actually download things and then put it on airplane mode. And you can have books and all that stuff because it is, very, very detrimental. There's two people I like to follow. Tori Gelter, she's a pediatrician in California, and Victoria Dunkley. Victoria Dunkley is a child psychiatrist. She actually was on TV years ago. She does the digital detox, and they talk about how much Wi-Fi affects children. Dr. George Carderas wrote Glow Kids, and now I think he's got a new book, but it just shows just the screen time is affecting the cingulate gyrus of the brain. Kids are developing that. Well, the cingulate gyrus is your empathy, your eye contact, your nice, development of your brain, and it's not happening. So you're getting like robotic, right? That's the thing we notice. And then the screening and scrolling. I mean, everyone's so addicted to that, and that's not healthy either because you're getting this dopamine, and it's not the right kind of dopamine. So
And it's
I tell
depleting
people,
your reserves and your other hormones too. We'll talk about that in
exactly,
a second. The biggest thing is when we think
yes,
about these, the EMF exposure, when you started in this realm, and I have to tell you, I'll give you some backstory. When I was in med school in 91, um, so 1991, we had a integrative medicine symposium that we're able to go to at the University of Miami was hosting it. And one of the things they talked about then was that, these tumors coming up, women who are using their phones in their bra, or in their leg and having these bizarre tumors come up, brain tumors in the area of where they were holding their phone. This is from 1991. And
wow.
there's been no progress, right? Like we have some companies too that are coming on and we'll talk about some solutions. But
Hmm.
to see this, to kind of have this awareness and realize this is an invisible problem, right? This is the elephant in the room. And when we want to look at optimal health, we think, okay, convenience and technology, but how, what's the balance? How do we protect ourselves? And I think that's the biggest thing, especially in, I have a client I just spoke to this morning with some neuropsychiatric issues and vasomotor symptoms. She's getting very, very cold.
Hmm.
And she's in an apartment building right now in north of Dallas. And she's like, I can't expose all the exposure I'm at. So, like, let's see what we can expose, what we can control, especially while you're sleeping. What are things we can do to protect? And we'll talk about some of those. The other area that is noticing the effect of EMFs is in our veterinary world, and in one specific area too is our bees, right? Our honeybees, our pollinators. We're seeing a diminished population that will affect potentially life as we know it on this
Yes,
planet. And I was wondering because
very
I
good
was just
point.
in Montana, and
Mhm.
that was a really big topic of conversation, the decline in the bee
Good,
population.
because they're blaming a lot of it on the pesticides and neonicotinoids, but you're right, the EMF is a big problem because bees are really dependent on frequency. So the Cleveland Clinic actually did studies years ago that showed, just having an old phone, the 900 megahertz old phones, the 2G, 3G phone, just having that at a hive for 10 minutes threw all the worker bees off. But it's good you brought this up because last month in July, a big study came out in Poland where they actually studied the proteins in the bees and how they were functioning, their sugar, and 1 hour of a 900 megahertz, so that's an older phone frequency, was basically starving them. Within 59% of their protein gone in an hour with exposure. So you're right. I think the big problem with bees and a lot of insects, there's actually a paper I was going to try to show you on my phone where they show how much of 5G is absorbed into these little insects' bodies. I mean, and trees are dying near cell phones. I mean, there's a whole website called wildlifeandwireless.org, and Dr. Blake Levitt did a great multi-phase study about what's going on with nature. So you're right. I mean, if we don't have nature, we don't have our bees, we need to wake up. This is very, very important.
Yeah, and especially about child health, right?
Hmm.
Our children. Okay, I want to rapid fire some questions at you.
Okay.
And, there's so much content here. And again, this is, very new information for so many of us and my listeners. And wanted to say, many listeners don't realize they may be affected by EMFs. And what are some of the lesser known symptoms of EMF sensitivity that women especially should watch out for?
The big one I find is sleep. Having a lot of trouble sleeping. Just start putting the phone in the other room, turn everything off, and see if you start. The other thing is with sleep, I want to mention this, is that the blue light on your screen, your computer or your phone screen, goes and tells your pineal gland it's time to wake up. So you immediately stop making melatonin. And there's a guy named Paul Reuter, he's an amazing doctor who studies melatonin nonstop. And he presented the fact that if you just look at your phone for a second, it's all it takes. Your melatonin stops being, and then there's a guy named Jack Cruz who's a neurosurgeon. He's out there talking about all this all day long. We're supposed to be making melatonin, but we don't because of these frequencies, right? So that's a big one. And women are on their phones a lot. Everybody looks at their phone before they go to sleep. The apps, I'm not a fan because you've got that wireless right by you. So the first thing I notice is people will notice a difference as soon as they start getting that out of the bedroom. The other big thing is people will say, well, sometimes when I use my phone, my ear gets hot. Don't put your phone to your ear at all. Use speaker. There's a group called Tech Wellness. They have headphones with special tubes, doesn't get to your brain. That's a big problem. We're having a lot more thyroid issues. People wear those wireless things around their throat, but parotid gland, there's surgeons are super active right now taking these parotid glands out. And so that's really important. One of the big things is fatigue and just this, because we're never grounded, right? And we wear rubber soled shoes and we're constantly around this stuff, and then when we go outside we're not really grounding because the earth is full of electrons and it helps that flow. So people there's earthing harmony. You can get leather soled shoes where you're completely connected, like the old days, when people had moccasins or what, leather soled shoes are really, you can get them now with expensive shoes, but there's actual companies now making these. So those are the big ones that women tell me all the time. Also, I use my phone and sometimes my arms tingle, my skin tingles, or I use my computer, my face starts flushing or feels tingly. And that's actually, we've found now that it triggers mast cells, which creates histamine, right? So those are big ones that people say, well, and then it got better. Well, maybe they moved or they did something different. But yeah, I recommend you put the night shift on your phone. You can go to settings and put it on night shift. That will take the blue light frequency away. And you can download a couple different F.Lux or Iris Mini to put on your computer screen. And now they've got screen protectors. I just found out they have an OcuShield, OCU, OcuShield. You can put that on your phone because and that's the thing that Dr. Cruz was talking about. We have this pro-opio-melanocorticotropin peptide that affects your adrenals, your ACTH, your leptin, and your blood sugar. So people have gained weight just from being around this stuff. And so he's showing that this pathway is so affected. And guess what? All these celebrities are going down to Costa Rica to be treated by him. And it's because he's saying we're not getting any UVA light from the sun. The UVA light triggers the MSH and all these important hormones. And then we're inside all day with fluorescent lights and blue lights, and we're not getting that. So he's just having these people go outside. So outside periodically through the day. Do not wear sunglasses. That whole mechanism is triggered through the eyes. So if you have photophobia, that means you're pretty sensitive. Your melanin is not just made in your skin, it's made in your brain and your GI tract. So they've showed like people with MS and different diseases are not getting the melanin in those areas. And it's because of all this. It's really amazing when you look at how much it's
It's the
affecting us.
invisible block, and I will have to tell you, I just interviewed Jack Cruz.
You
Again, he's
did
been on my
great.
podcast before, but I interviewed him with quite long podcasts, but, like, we're not sharing the video because he was the entire time outside.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was all naked or half naked. I'm not sure. But he is soaking up whatever sun he can get at any time, so it was definitely a good episode for my listeners to listen to too. I mean, it's really one of the people I've learned so much
Well,
from
and he went
in
back and
regards
he
to
went to the med schools and he looked at the old literature and he's like, we're missing something here, and he put it all together. It's brilliant.
brilliant. I know, and especially as a neurosurgeon. And the other aspect too that we talk about, you said fatigue, weight gain, it's the anxiety, depression, ADHD.
Hmm.
Those
Yes.
issues too, if experiencing that, think, okay, where could radio frequencies, where could EMFs be interfering with my cognition?
Right, because of the calcium channels, the excitatory mechanism on the neurotransmitters, your sympathetic nervous system. It's telling your body, stay alert, stay alert, stay alert. And then the scrolling, it's driving that dopamine. And so all of those things, the blue light, so then people are just completely anxious because you're not giving your brain a chance to calm down or process anything. And that's where people have trouble sleeping too, because I've got all this data and then they're supposed to go to sleep, and then they go to sleep and they're still trying to process it all. And then your theta waves are kind of after your delta deep sleep. And that's when you wake up in the morning. Your theta waves are really important because that's when your body's trying to still process through the subconscious thoughts in the day before. And what do? We look at our phone right away. So we shut the theta off. You need to have that waking up time. So yeah, so people are, Victoria Dunkley did a great thing because she had kids do digital detox, and you watch these kids' hyperness go away. So I talk about this in one of the other podcasts I've done. I built a low EMF house, okay, out in the middle of East Texas. And when my kids were growing up, they would go be in the city on their video games and then come to the house. And I actually took a video of them because we did 2 weeks of no video games, no, we're just outside, we're swimming, we're doing the normal things, right? That people my age and older did, and we're grounding. And I took a video and showed them the 2 videos of their personalities and how they shifted. And so if you can do a digital detox with your kids or your family, I recommend it, because yeah, they became creative. They were totally different, personalities. And that's the thing. It kind of sneaks up on us and people don't realize how much it's affecting you. So that's the big thing I tell people. Now, wearing these watches and EMF solution like harmonizers, I'm not a big fan of harmonizers, but I feel like EMF solutions works pretty well. And the reason I say that is because I had a bag of these things and I would have different really sensitive people try them. And when I learned about this one, I was kind of like, I don't know. But I have found it's been extremely helpful. They have a whole system. You can put chips on your phone, on your computer. It does help take away that calcium channel influx of the cell. So what I will warn people is that you will detox when you start to use these products. So you might have to take them off periodically, but it's helping your body not be so affected by the EMFs. Now, I don't advocate that that's the answer. Like, I still want people to turn off the Wi-Fi at night. They have Christmas tree timers you can put on your Wi-Fi. Try to get avoidance as much as you can. Put your phone on airplane mode whenever you can. Download stuff on your computer. Hardwiring is amazing. And there's different specialists out there that can help you hardwire your house, your computer. I had a guy come out to my place in East Texas, and he took the Skylink and he put it all in a cable so no Wi-Fi comes in my house. And so
Oh, wow.
that's really, really nice. Yeah.
So you're using Skylink for that?
Yeah, it's
You
like
have
we don't
a
have
you have
fiber.
a
We don't have fiber out there.
okay. You have EMF, healthy home solution
Yes.
sheet. I
Yes.
would love to be able to, um, include that in the show notes
Okay.
to be able to
Yeah.
share that with our audience. There's so much here. And so you said the band you're using is EMF Solutions.
Hmm.
EMF Solutions band. Okay, so we can look that
And
up.
they have a room harmonizer that you can plug in your bedroom. They have a whole house unit. I don't know if you can see that. But this, if you plug it in and you're not sleeping well, then you need to just slowly use it for just a few minutes. Like, some people are fine. They go, oh, I plugged it in. I slept the best I've ever slept. But people are all different in their whatever's going on with them. Like, people who've had mold exposure, chemicals, people who are working in really high EMF environments, like in the military and stuff, they tend to have to go slower with stuff. And that's the other thing I was going to mention. They said there's like 3 to 10% of the population that's electrically sensitive, but we now know it's much higher because most people are not being diagnosed and don't understand these symptoms are related. And because of 5G, we're seeing a big increase in people who are right by these, towers. So it's unfortunate, but it's growing and it's a problem. There are
Yeah, and it's growing
specialists.
internationally.
Yeah, I have patients in California that have, they sleep in a Faraday canopy, and it's unfortunate, but that's the world we're living in. And that canopy really makes a difference. And I can tell people you can, lessemf.com, they're really helpful because you don't want your electricity on, or you don't really want a lot in that room if you're going to have the canopy, because anything that gets in there is going to bounce onto you. But people love them when they do it right, and they sleep like babies and they love it. So there's different specialists that can help, the Biology Institute. And then there's a guy named Brian Hoyer who does shieldedhealing.com. So yeah, there's a lot of really.
Defender Shield. I like that brand too.
So Defender Shield, you have to be careful because what you're doing, I still use it because it blocks the magnetic field of the phone. But what happens, Dr. Cabeca, is if you have that and you cover your phone up and you're in an environment where there's not a lot of cell tower exposure, because you still haven't covered, you haven't completely covered, you're getting a lot more hitting you. Unfortunately, if you're in a city, it's not as bad. But that, yeah, I'm unfortunately those don't work as well as we think. Um,
The
yeah.
cases.
So they
Yeah.
have Shield Your Body has a pouch that you can put your phone in, and it will still get signal on one side, and then the other side is blocked. So that helps too. So a lot of people that do, wear their phone. A lot of guys they do that. They wear the pouch. But the best thing is to not have it on your body, as it says in your contract on your phone.
Yeah, not to have in your disclosure, right? Your
Exactly. Yes. So
And so with this, like with thinking about these things, I would just share a story with you. I
yeah.
have I had a patient who was having exhaustion, difficulty sleeping, waking up through the night, and so we were doing all the things, and usually one of the first things for you to do, and one of the last things for me to do is talk about EMF exposure. We definitely did the blue light exposure. That's a big part of
Okay.
my awareness. But the EMF, I said, check your house. Where is your, the electronic boxes? Where is your
Right.
Wi-Fi? Where is your router? And she did, and it was behind the wall behind her bed. And I said, well, like we're going to work to switch that around. Can you at least flip? Let's do an experiment. At
Yes.
least put your head at the foot of the bed.
Yeah.
Have your husband do the same thing. Otherwise, you're sleeping with his feet. So flip flip your head and let's
Yeah.
just see. Let's do
Yeah.
that 3, 4 nights in a row and see if there was any difference. And she slept through the night. It was just that,
Yes.
that difference. And
And I would tell
and
you to tell listeners, if you think about your neighbor, like if your bedroom is backed up to one of their hot spots or tower mini towers or panel electrical panel, or they got in Texas we have a lot of houses that have the generator in the yard, like check that too, because that could be affecting you if your bedroom's right there.
and so there are actual walls you can put up to decrease that.
There are things you can put up, shielding material. The biologist I would definitely recommend they help, because you want to make sure you're not bouncing some of that stuff back onto yourself from the room. And there's like shielding paint that people use in California. Usually, if it's over 10,000 microwatts, you got to use something like shielding paint. Copper works pretty well. Like in China, people wear bands, pregnant women wear bands over their bellies. But when you get into 5G and 18 gigahertz, then it's not going to work. So yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it. The other
Mm.
thing I was going to mention is the grounding sheets. So they have this several kinds now, and it plugs into your outlet to your ground. I tell patients if you're going to use it, it's also helpful to turn the breaker off. It comes with a little breaker checker to see if you're grounded properly in your outlet. But I find there's even 300 millivolts of some current there, even with that outlet. So I tell people turn the breaker off if you can. But what it's doing is it's grounding your body to the outside. And so some people have a little bit of withdrawal and they feel funny. So I tell them, if you feel funny, unplug it. But over time, they start waking up later in the night. And I always say, do you dream more? That's a big one. People start to get that deep sleep. And you'll see animals. You were talking about animals. You'll see dogs go to, people will tell me all the time, the dog goes to that sheet or, to feel grounded. Or when there's some storm, they'll go
Mm.
right to that sheet because they feel it.
And the thing is, you shouldn't have your phone on that bed on that grounding sheet, right? I know I have grounding sheet, that goes under my daughter's sheet on her bed.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay, but if she has her phone on the bed, that's another issue. We've had discussions. We had discussions. But still like, having that grounding sheet can make a really big difference.
Mhm. Oh, I was going to
Yeah.
mention too, balance is a big thing. Nausea, balance issues, and ringing in the ears.
Mm, okay. Um, one of the thing is, we talk about, okay, like getting practical. What are top 3 things we can do today to really, like, we think the top 3, because this can be overwhelmed. There's 100 things we can do, but what are the top 3 to reduce EMF exposure in our homes and protect our families?
Number one is turn the routers off at night if you can, and get the phones off at night or put them on airplane
See,
mode.
this is an issue, but it is connected to my security system here in Dallas because I've
Oh,
done it and then the security system says it's
so
not working.
EMF
Get
Solutions
it
has a
hardwired.
EMF Solutions has a device that you can put on um, the router to it. You put it around the actual electrical wire, and it will help. And then like they do have a whole house thing that you can put on your electrical panel, but I just caution people that it might wipe them out because it's going to change the whole house and you're going to detox. Some people like to go in steps and use the this first and then put chips on the computer and on the phones. And then the next big thing would be the blue light. Make sure you've got your blue light shut off because that's affecting everything. And dirty electricity is another big thing. So LED lights, if you can, now we have special bulbs you can get that are low dirty electricity LED bulbs and variable speed pumps. You can get this thing called a green wave. I didn't bring one, but there's a green wave and Stetzer filters that you plug in your outlets, and it helps with the dirty electricity because smart meters and all those things produce that too. And the people notice they sleep better. And so those would be my top three. I would say get a chip for your phone and put your blue light off your phone. Keep it on airplane mode as much as you can. And those are the most important. And stop the scrolling. Set a time in the evening, stop the scrolling, read from a book. I mean, the pediatric studies show that people retain a lot more information still on paper versus screens. So that would be my top.
Okay, those are good ones. Those are really good ones, and they're all ones I need to do better at. Um, One of the things when you built your low EMF eco-friendly home, what did you learn during the process that shocked or surprised you?
A lot of things. So I had one bedroom that was my bedroom, and I couldn't sleep in it. And I thought, what? I put all the wiring in metal conduit. I did everything that the books tell me to do. I had a guy come help me, and I found out it was geopathic stress. And so we have geopathic stress in the earth, and it comes from a lot of the cross of different geopathic lines of lava, water, like creek beds, river. You have create these natural fields. And I had a very strong cross of two different types of grid lines that were creating this, huge geopathic stress, which I had not tested the soil, the property for that. But I did have a biologist come, and he was able to mitigate some of that. But I ended up making that my office because I could not figure it out. I turned all the electricity off. I'm like, what is going on? So that was interesting. And then just the fact that when you build a low chemical house, your total load goes down so much and your nervous system is so calm. Like it's just amazing how many things we don't realize our body's adapting to all day long. And when you take all that away, your body it goes into this relaxed calm state, right? Where your body's just like my kids, they all work in big cities and they work on computers and, they're doing all this stuff and not using as much of I think of the shielding like I want them to, but they'll come to that house now and they will sleep like hours and hours. And they say, what's going on? I said, you're having withdrawal from all the stimulus. So it's kind of like our forefathers, right? Be outside, do things on the ground. I was trying to think of what else I learned. Oh, I had a lot of metal initially that I was using, and I was sensitive to that. And so I've learned that the electromagnetics can re-radiate from the steel and the aluminum. And so it can be like an antenna for this stuff, especially with the satellites now. But the biologist Brian Hoyer has told me he's got a way to mitigate that where you shield in layers so it'll stop that re-radiation of the signals. So
Okay, hold on a second, because I heard that the metal roofs were better for decreasing Wi-Fi exposure. Like metal roofs are safer than the asphalt roofs or the whatever.
well, asphalt, yeah, you don't want to use chemicals as much as possible. But I've had more problems now with 5G where people are reporting an issue. So, but yeah, and then some people have to have another layer inside or shielding paint because they suddenly have issues with it. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I would consult with a biologist before I would do that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I have to get you to come to my house with all your
Yes,
devices and
yes.
test
Oh, solar. So
everything.
solar is a big thing, right? Everybody wants solar. Well, solar produces a lot of dirty electricity, which we didn't talk as much about, but dirty electricity resonates very close to
When you
our.
say dirty electricity, what do you mean?
So dirty electricity is coming from harmonics of voltage going back and forth between AC, DC rapidly. And so that's your LED lights. Smart meters do have it. Your variable speed pumps, like a swimming pool pump, which I did. That's another surprise I had. I had a regular pump. And one year I was like measuring dirty electricity in my house. And you can actually use an AM radio and just listen for static and it'll be really, really high. But you can also get I thought I had it here, a dirty electricity meter. It's called Stetzer meter. And you can plug it in your house and see, because what we've learned is that also affects the body. So Dr. Magda Havis in Canada is a scientist who's a big EMF She's an OG for EMFs. And she has a website, magdahavis.com. And she and Dr. Sam Milham were looking at a school in California, and they wrote about this. It had all these teachers getting cancer, and the kids were performing less well, and it had a huge amount of dirty electricity. And so that dirty electricity resonates very close to our cells. It's like 2 hertz to like 300 kilohertz. Kilohertz is like an AM radio. But what happens is your blood sugar gets affected, fatigue, cognition, your heart. So here's the Stetzer meter. You can just plug it into plug it into wherever your outlet is. And then these you can have these plugins that you can just plug in to mitigate that. So yeah, so that was a big surprise because I had changed my pump on my swimming pool, which actually goes into a separate panel outside the house, but it's all connected. So I was putting up Christmas tree lights, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to check my LED. If these are LED Christmas lights." And the thing was so high, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I unplugged all the Christmas lights, and it was still there. And that's when I found out it was the swimming pool pump.
Oh, man, that's crazy. Good
Yeah,
detective work. Obviously,
I
you gotta put
know.
your Nancy Drew hat on and figure these things out. Well, and a couple things from what we're talking about. One about the calcium, like what we say, well, like the cells are becoming more porous too. We're losing, so they're more receptive to toxins, less, and more
Well, and
acidic. So with that calcium out,
we're creating our own free radicals in our body.
we're
It,
creating these free radicals, this inflammatory compounds that damage and destroy,
it's
right?
like
And
a
so
pesticide, or you're getting another exposure.
well, one thing I have my clients do, check regularly the urine pH, right? And so that electron balance over a cell, and the positive and negative charges over the cells and
Hmm.
contribute to acidity or alkalinity. And
Yes,
so I'm wondering, because I have clients
which
that
I
are doing
love
everything.
your keto-green.
Thank
That's so great.
Thank you. It's like it's a whole process. And so this detective work of checking urinary pH, because with that efflux of calcium, you're going to get a
Really,
more
yes.
acidic urine. So again, okay, when we're not getting as alkaline, we have to look at those EMFs. We have to look at dirty electricity. We have to consider the blue light exposure. We want to heal our cells so that they're so perfectly functioning. And the other thing that I will tell you, recently I did a digital detox, full 92 hours, no
Good.
phone, no computer. In a black room, I did a 92-hour dark retreat. So I was in a black room in the
Wow.
middle of a jungle, and okay, basically, and I had the most vivid dreams I've ever had in my entire life, vivid and real, because I typically don't remember my dreams. And I was like,
Delta,
okay.
you're getting so much good delta waves.
Oh,
Deep
it was
sleep.
so good. It was so good. It was so healing. It really was. It was transformative. And then I'm back in my Dallas place. I'm like, okay, I'm going to dream, going to remember my dreams. And they're like, it's like a bad orgasm right now. It's like nothing. It's really like you can't compare the two. It's terrible.
That's so
So
interesting you
it's
say that because my kids always say that too when they come to the ranch. They're like, "Oh my gosh, mom, I'm dreaming like some dreams I can't believe it."
yeah, yeah. So it's an interesting finding. And that means like, okay, what are we dampening from our own intuitive ability when we have these competitive frequencies? Because we are energy, right? We are energy. All right. So where can people go to get tested or diagnosed if they suspect EMF sensitivity or other environmental illnesses?
They can come here to Carpathia,
Yeah.
right? And there are a few other clinics that are around the United States that do look at some of this as well. I would say go to AAEMonline.org, American Academy of Environmental Medicine, and look for practitioners because I have presented many times at AEM. And AEM is a naturopathic website. It's the National Association of Environmental Medicine. They have a wonderful, I'm going to put that in your notes, patient guideline that I help write for EMFs, and they have very, very well, reviewed practitioners. They're mostly or naturopaths, but they're very good. So those would be people I would look for. And I really want to promote the 704 No More because I'm passionate about our kids and their futures and this, rise in disease for children. And
What is 704 no more?
so it is an organization that is working with Scott McCullough, who is a really experienced lawyer who's been trying to help. He's actually helped get cell phone towers taken down, which is really hard to do. In New Hampshire, actually, they have an anti 5G bill. I think he's helped with that as well. And Europe, by the way, is way ahead of us. Italy, Germany, Nigeria, all these places have put a moratorium on 5G because they're looking at the damage. They're looking at the studies. And in fact, in Belgium and in Israel, they hardwire their computers in schools, right? They don't have any of that wireless. So we need to get on board and get, people need to get to 704 because that's their goal. 704 no more. Scott McAuliffe and Camilla Reese, they're trying to, number one, 704 was the Telecommunications Act they passed in 1996 that says we can put a tower wherever we want. And so we
Mm.
want to stop that. We want to give control to local people and governments. And then number two, to really enforce this reevaluation of safety limits and guidelines because they're way too high. And we have, thousands of studies and thousands of pages of evidence. And now, like you said, we're affecting nature. And this is we've got to swing this pendulum the other direction. I am encouraged. The EMF guy is a great guy, Nick Pinot. He has a couple of things on his website where it's 5G in 5 minutes. You can download that and you'll learn a lot. He wrote the non-tinfoil guide to EMFs, which is really easy for people to understand. And he has told me that there is now a computers coming out without blue light. So the Titanic is slowly starting because the more people ask for safer, the more it's going to start getting to the industry's attention that we need to do something. Because right now, even though with all the cancers, I mean, parotid, thyroid, it's just growing. That's what I was going to say to people is that our DNA is like an antenna. So when we switch to a digital signal, we're hitting that. It's not like the wave of the analogs that we had in the old days. So we need to pay attention because I don't see how people are going to evolve to tolerate this. And our children
Mhm.
are, like you said, the experiment and the guinea pigs that are suffering. So
Mhm.
get on board with that. EHtrust.org is a wealth of information. The Environmental Health Trust, Deborah Davis has been in this issue. She's another OG. She wrote Disconnect years ago about phones. Fantastic website. You've got all the stuff you need to educate your neighbors, flyers, anything you want to look up is on that. And what's another one? So Safer Living Technologies is where I got my meters. And Rob Metzinger is the owner of that company. And I do believe there is something you can get for your power. If you can't get away from the power grid or the panel, he has something on his website you can use. So for people who have that issue, that's another good place to look. And I want to make sure I've told you everybody that I like grounding well for the grounding sheets because they're organic.
Okay, nice. There's so many things, right? And for our audience, if you're feeling overwhelmed, like I am a little bit right now, like, oh my God, I got so much to do. Okay, one thing at a time. Just think, what's the one thing I can do now? And easy enough to put your phone in the other room, make sure there's no EMF, check your, Wi-Fi signals, your electric grill, do what you can do to dampen them or turn them off, ground as much as possible in nature,
And
getting out
hardwire
into
the
nature.
computer. That would be the biggest thing too. Hardwire that computer, you'll notice a big shift.
And that's all about safety. So finally, Stephanie, what gives you hope in this field?
Because the younger generations, and I hate to say this, it's counterproductive in some ways because it's social media, but Joe Rogan's done podcasts with Kennedy, and Robert Kennedy is very aware of all the blood-brain barrier and effects from this. So, and the fact that it's in the Make America Healthy Again agenda, even though they've eliminated some important studies. It's interesting. The government had the National Toxicology Program study that was done in 2016. They spent I think $30 million over 16 years, and it showed heart tumors and brain tumors. And then they tried to say it wasn't real. So, I mean, this is all coming out now. So I'm very hopeful. And I think because of that, and young people are being much more aware. Kids, I see young people like, saying, I want to buy these shoes, or I don't want, they're grounding. There's a big flux right now for younger people to get the old flip phones. So I thought that was very encouraging. So it's people are waking up, which is wonderful
I
because
I, I like the flip phones. I liked them.
telecom owns a lot of the media, right? So we're not going to see these things in the news. We're not going to see these things. We have 5G commercials every 5 minutes. I did hear that they are harmonizing the Minnesota Vikings football stadium. So I was like,
Wow.
wow, things are shifting, right?
Yeah, but now if you're harmonizing, but everyone's got their cell phones on and Wi-Fi, does it still work?
That's a good question. So
Yeah.
there's a guy named Chevalier in Montreal, Dr. Chevalier has a really cool Kirlian camera from like Russia, the Russians use.
Yeah.
And he has a way to look at that. And not very many companies have signed up for his testing. But I would love to see that because that would be the way to test it.
Right? That would be interesting.
Mhm.
Well, I thank you so much for
Yeah,
being with us today, Stephanie. This has been so powerful. You guys, what a powerful conversation.
I love it
Dr.
too.
Stephanie McCarter has truly opened our eyes to the invisible stressors surrounding us. Literally, invisible stressors
And I
that
encourage your
are.
listeners, take these steps. You will notice you'll be calmer. You're going to sleep better. You're going to be like, wow, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's so critical to make one next right step at a time.
Mhm.
And, realizing that these may be sabotaging our health, or they're probably sabotaging all our health and different degrees depending on our susceptibility and exposure frequency, affecting our health, our hormones, our vitality, our weight, our energy, the way we show up, think clearly in this world. So if you've resonated with any part of this episode, I encourage you to explore the resources Dr. McCarter mentioned and begin with one small change at home, one next right step. Remember that knowledge is power, but action is healing, right? You can have faith, but faith with action is what it takes. So you are not powerless, and your body is incredibly resilient, always repairing. So, as always, I'm here to help you thrive during and before and after menopause, because you deserve to live vibrantly at every stage. Until the next time, stay smiling, stay grounded, and always stay connected to me, your girlfriend doctor. Thank you guys so much for being here. We will add those resources into the show notes and help support you on your journey. Thank you again, Dr. McCarter.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.